Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. You got many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Boy, do I have a show for you guys tonight. I figured I would start off with an actual true story that's only being shown on Fox News, but you can also go and see it on Twitter, on the official Twitter account for Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat, Texas. This is one of those stories that if you didn't hear it for yourself, you would think it can't be possibly true because it's so absolute batshit crazy. And to think that a sitting member of Congress said these things. And again, you can go to her Twitter account or X account and watch her do it. So what are we talking about? Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat, Texas, misinformed a group of high school students in Houston that the moon is a planet that is made up of mostly gases. That is correct. Jackson Lee, who once led the House Science Committee's Space Subcommittee, made several false statements that stunned a crowd of teenagers at Booker T. Washington High School in Houston during Monday's solar eclipse yesterday. So she was there to share the solar eclipse with them and then gave a speech ahead of time. How the moon's a planet and it's nothing but a bunch of gases. She said, "You heard the word full moon?" Jackson Lee told the students who were with her on a sports field before the eclipse. "Sometimes you need to take the opportunity to just come out and see a full moon is that completely round circle, which is made up of mostly gases. And that's why the question is why or how could we as humans live on the moon? Are the gases such that we could do that?" The congressional representative continued, saying, "The sun is a mighty powerful heat, but it's almost impossible to go near the sun. The moon is more manageable." Jackson Lee continued, making several statements that were questionable. In one statement, she told students the moon not only reflects the sun's light, but also emits unique light and energy. "You have the energy of the moon at night," Jackson Lee said. In another statement, she misstated how solar eclipses happen. She said, "What you will see today will be the closest distance that the moon has ever been in the last 20 years, which means that's why they will shut the light down, because they will be close to the Earth, which is an amazing experience," Jackson Lee said in the live video clip posted to her X account. "You will be available to tell because there will be complete darkness," she said. In the video, Jackson Lee tells students not to look at the sun directly, warning them that the eclipse was a serious matter. And looking to the sun directly could mean students not being able to leave on their own, but instead will be walked out while holding their arm. In the clip, Jackson Lee is seen struggling to put on the eclipse glasses on her face as students move towards the sports field to watch. She also spoke about being able to live and survive on the moon. "I don't know about you. I want to be first in line to know how to live and be able to survive on the moon," Jackson Lee added. "That's another planet, which we're going to see shortly." Look, this is a sitting member of our Congress. This is the kind of shit that's running our country. And we wonder why things are so screwed up. Here it is, folks. It's shit like this. And the things that come out of AOC's mouth and Alejandro Mar, Rashid Tlaib, and Hank Jeffries, who just told Congress he's concerned about us sending too many troops to the island of Guam because it might tip over and sink. On Tuesday, Jackson Lee turned to X to clear up the statement she made to students and said it was misinformed. Obviously, I misspoke, and I meant to say the sun. But as usual, Republicans are focused on stupid things instead of stuff that really matters, she said. This is after being called out on it. What can I say, though? Foolish thinkers lust for stupidity. Jackson Lee continued and said Republicans should be focused on prenatal care, affordable housing, and reduction of student loan debts. Also, I care more about these children who would not have experienced the eclipse, and this enthusiasm matters, she added. I'm sorry. That's just how these kids look. If I was a teacher there, how could you not help but walk up to her and go, "What are you talking about, ma'am? Are you serious?" And then in the clip, as she's putting on her glasses, she's got them upside down and she's trying to get them on her face and she can't. You got to go see it. When the show's over tonight, if you're on X, formerly Twitter, go check it out because it's freaking hilarious that this is what we have representing America. Speaking of craziness representing America, and look, this is a story that I've known about this for a while. I've talked about it briefly in the past, and for one reason or another, mainstream media has talked very little about it. During the last election, there was a little bit of talk about it, primarily on Fox News and some of the right type of news media outlets, but nobody else covered it. And why the right news outlets have stopped covering it, I don't know. But maybe after what took place today, they will, because it needs to be blasted everywhere. And if you're a Democrat and a liberal and you like Joe Biden and you're listening to tonight's show, well, this is not going to make you very happy. A diary authored by U.S. President Joe Biden's own daughter, Ashley Biden, describes inappropriate actions taken towards her by her father when she was a child. The report has been floating around for 3 years now with little media coverage. The quotes in question were found in the diary's leaked pages from Ashley Biden's diary, which has been discovered in a former residence that was later sold to Operation Project Veritas. But no media source has authenticated its contents, which is probably why they've done little about it, or the contents of the pages published online. A month prior to the November 2020 presidential election, the National File blog published a copy of the complete diary of Ashley Blazer Biden, the 39-year-old daughter of then Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden in 2020 during the presidential campaign. An often cited page from the leaked diary, which chronicles its author's addiction recovery in intimate details, makes reference to sexual trauma and poses questions in search of an explanation for being hypersexualized at a young age, along with mentioning of not liking to visit a certain family's house, being sexualized with a female friend, and having sex with friends at a young age. She says, taking showers with my dad was probably not appropriate. Project Veritas court testimony indicates they paid $40,000 for this alleged diary. As reported by the Associated Press in August of 2022, the document had come into the possession of two people after one moved into an apartment previously occupied by Ashley Biden. Ashley Biden was moving out of a friend's Delray Beach home in the spring of 2020 when she stored the diary, tax records, and digital device with family photos, a cell phone, and other items there, prosecutors said in a court filing. They said Amy Harris then moved into the room, found the items, and got in touch with Robert Kirtland, who enthused in a text message that he would help her make a ton of money from selling it. So while the news media is floundering on reporting very little on this story, it pays to mention two things to back up the diary's existence. Number one, Joe Biden contacted the Department of Justice about the diary, which in turn had the FBI go to Project Veritas and retrieve it. So it does exist. And number two, Amy Harris, who had the diary, was sentenced in a Manhattan federal court by Judge Laura Taylor Swan, who called the Palm Beach, Florida woman's actions despicable. Harris pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges in August of 2022, admitting that she received $20,000 of the $40,000 it was paid by Project Veritas for personal items and a diary belonging to President's daughter, Ashley Biden. What is it about Biden kids leaving shit behind? Like Hunter and his laptop, Ashley and her diary. So there you go. Those latest two things lead me to believe Joe Biden probably did sexually abuse his own daughter as written by his daughter in her diary. And if not, when? Why has Ashley Biden been silenced and the diary's entire contents been released to the public? We have seen all over the internet in places like YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, and TikTok, Joe Biden doing very inappropriate things in public around little girls during official White House events, such as smelling their hair and telling them how beautiful they are, while his hands are roaming all over their arms and shoulders, which is how he picked up the name Creepy Joe in the first place. And in some of those videos in the White House, you can even see the parent of the daughters reaching over and moving the daughter away from the president because what he was doing was inappropriate. Not to mention, in his own words, which you can see on YouTube and Rumble and all over social media where there's videos, in his own words, telling an audience during an event how he had fond memories of being in a swimming pool and having the little children rub their hands up and down his hairy legs. His words, not mine, Joe Biden's. Speaking of Biden, he is losing support from young black voters who helped spur his 2020 victory primarily because of his administration's support for Israel and the war in Gaza. A new report says CNN's Renee Marsh spoke with 4 black voters in Georgia who were registered Democrats and supported Biden in the last election, but said they wouldn't be voting for him or voting for President Trump this November because of their strong disagreement with the U.S. approach to the war. 3 of the voters said they'd be choosing an independent or third-party candidate this time. Another voter admitted that if the election were held tomorrow, she wouldn't vote at all. Without a ceasefire on the table, Biden wouldn't be getting their vote. They all seem to agree. If there's no substance policy change when it comes to the genocide in Gaza, then there's not really a discussion for me. One man in the group said, I think what Biden has done in aiding and abetting genocide is just something I cannot stand for, another woman added. CNN's Marsh asked the group if they were worried about voting for a third-party candidate could help Trump win the election. Would you not say that also people who are not voting for one of the two people who are likely people to really be in this race have a role to play in giving the race to Donald Trump in a state like Georgia, where it's going to be razor thin, she pleaded. The voters recognized the impact of their choices could be made on the race, saying they were sending a message to the Democrat Party. I'll do one better, actually. I think that just means that the Democrats should listen, he responded, as the others agreed. We're holding their election in the palm of our hands, and they're not listening. Biden won Georgia by a little less than 12,000 votes in 2020, becoming the first Democrat White House hopeful to do so since 1992. Losing even a small slice of black voters in the state could tip the swing state back to Trump's column. We're tired of hearing him say things like, "These empty promises," a female voter remarked. "We have no trust in Joe Biden." Two of the voters also remarked that they are struggling in the current economy. One voter called for a raise in the minimum wage, while two others called for his administration to stop sending aid to Israel. Another reiterated the need for a ceasefire. If he doesn't get elected, that's his fault, one young man said. That's not our fault. If enough people vote third party, we can win. One of the female voters said, optimistically. Recent polls found Trump leads Biden in Georgia. Just over half of voters, 51%, say they support Trump in a hypothetical head-to-head rematch, while 43% say they go for Biden. That puts Trump ahead by 8 points outside the poll's margin of simple error. Biden's support among black voters has dropped roughly 30 points since 2020, according to USA Today, Sulphur University poll released in January. The poll found Biden's support among black voters fell 63%, down from the 92% the Pew Research Center data showed he won in the 2020 presidential election. So that's just one of many reasons he's losing the black vote. And that's with the young students. When it comes to the elder black community and the elder of all races in America, it's because of the economy. And it's because of what's happening overseas in general. It's because of the money being spent in Ukraine and not being spent on our border. It's because of the open border policies and the drugs flowing across into our country that's killing thousands of Americans, and the sex trafficking of women and children coming across our border. There are a ton of reasons why Democrats are starting to realize that this is not the right man. Now, at the same time, it's not to say that they're switching over to Trump. It's just to say that they're either not going to vote or they're going to vote third party or write someone in. But it's not going to be Joe Biden. And that's also happening in other areas, such as the Hispanic vote is almost all on board with Donald Trump right now because they see what's happening on the southern border. And the polls are reflecting that. The U.S. military is having a very hard time recruiting members. I've reported on this many times over the past 3 years. In fact, it is currently the worst it's been since the draft was canceled after the Vietnam War. The major problem is wokeness of today's military, support of transsexuals in the military, forcing troops to be politically correct, if not court-martialed, the forced vaccination, and making promotions based on gender, sexual orientation, and race. Young people join the military for several reasons. some of which are education benefits, learning a career, a steady job and income. And sadly, the least reason today would be feeling an obligation to serve their country, which for many years was the number one reason that young people joined our military service. Well, could this administration make things worse? Besides the wokeness and huge cuts to the military budget and surrendering our country to the same people responsible for attacking us on 9/11, the answer is yes, they can. The United States military's commander-in-chief, President Joe Biden, has tasked his far-left liberal woke administration to make cuts to two major education benefits, a move that expands previously reported potential cutbacks to credentialized assistance for soldiers that could affect more than 100,000 troops who tap the benefits each year. Last week, military.com reported the Army was eyeing cuts to its credentializing assistance program. But the potential upcoming cuts also include its tuition assistance program. The service confirmed to the publication. This is the first time tuition assistance being on the chopping block has been publicly acknowledged. The education benefit, which are currently under review and cost the Army about $278 million last year, are broadly popular among the rank and file and are among the service primary recruiting and retention tools. The Army has historically been furthering an education of its troops as a key to a well-rounded force. The Army recognizes the value of both to support our soldiers, professional development, and readiness levels. Major Andrea Kelly, a service spokesman, said in a statement to military.com. However, in order to ensure their long-term sustainability, the Army is conducting a thorough review of both programs. The news comes as college degrees and civilian training are becoming more relevant in the service, especially among non-commissioned officers, for whom civilian education is quickly becoming expected. The Army is also in the midst of a historic recruiting shortage, and education benefits have long been a critical initiative to fill the ranks. It's unclear what prompted this or whether those funds are even able to be siphoned to other priorities, as law sometimes dictates the services spend money in specific ways. The Army declined an interview request with officials for this story from several news outlets, to include myself, who reached out for comment. Included was Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Weimer, whose office is traditionally the center of gravity for issues pertaining to the enlisted force, which most often uses the benefits. Tuition assistance was introduced in 1999, but it was broadly implemented in the Army in 2002 in the wake of the September 11, 2001 attacks, when the service needed to quickly beef up its ranks. At the time, college was also becoming a greater priority in the services and in the civilian workforce. Since 2020, about 101,000 soldiers across all Army components use the benefits each year, averaging about $218 million in cost. But it's unclear what specific cuts or changes to tuition assistance the Army is mulling over. The Army's Credentialing Assistance Program, or Army CA, was introduced to the force-wide in 2020 in its current form, after evolving from a smaller version of the benefit. It was broadly seen by senior leadership as key during a time in which the services wanted troops to have diverse skill sets outside of their military occupation. At the same time, the Army CA benefits could set soldiers up for success in the civilian world when they transition out of the service. In the last 4 years, 64,500 soldiers have used the benefit, with licenses and qualifications to project management, personal training, and becoming pilots, being among the most frequently chosen fields. The use of the benefits has ballooned since 2020, costing $8 million then and growing to $60.2 million last year, according to data provided by the U.S. Army. Right now, the service is looking to cut its credentialing benefit in 2025 from $4,000 per year without a cap on use to $1,000 per year and never to exceed $4,000 in a soldier's career. Sources with direct knowledge of the deliberations explained to military.com. The publication also reviewed an internal brief and emails confirming the plans, but was unclear whether those plans had been finalized. The cuts would not impact the GI Bill, which is controlled by the Department of Veterans Affairs, or scholarships through the National Guard, which are controlled by the states. Service-specific educational benefits are built for soldiers to use while in service and can be employed in piecemeal, wherever the GI Bill is generally built to be used in semesters, which is often impractical for active duty troops. The GI Bill is also a benefit that can be transferred to the soldier's spouse or children. So the bottom line, education benefits are being cut for only one reason. And if you don't see this, then you're blind. Democrats historically cut military benefits and overall budget to use the money on all their pet projects, like illegal aliens, transsexual programs, benefits for minorities, and the biggest of them all, to give to other countries such as Ukraine. And even the Taliban in Afghanistan is receiving billions of dollars from this administration. Remember that in November. And a good sign for Republicans, the Republican National Committee, the RNC, announced Saturday that former President Donald Trump's campaign fundraising event in Palm Beach, Florida, raised more than $50.5 million. According to the RNC press release, Saturday's fundraiser suppressed all prior fundraising event records for either Republicans or Democrats. The RNC noted that Trump's $50.5 million fundraiser came just a week after President Joe Biden raised $25 million while appearing in New York City along with former presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. The RNC also noted that both the Trump campaign and the RNC's small dollar fundraising efforts are continuing to increase each month. Tonight will be an incredibly credible night for President Trump and the Republican Party, raising a stunning $50.5 million. Trump campaign senior advisor Chris Lascivas and Susie Willis said. Meanwhile, after locking up the nomination, one of the fastest primaries in modern political history, Donald J. Trump is winning poll after poll and proving that the enthusiasm is on his side. It's clearer than ever that we have the message, the operation, and the money to propel President Trump to victory on November 5th. Saturday's fundraiser came after the RNC and the Trump campaign announced on Wednesday of last week that the joint fundraising efforts brought in more than $65.6 million in March, leaving the Republican Party and the former president with approximately $93.1 million in cash on hand. The success of tonight's event is proving what we already know. Americans are fed up with Biden's record of failure, from the opening southern borders and sky-high inflation to the migrant crime crisis that has made everyone less safe, RNC Chair Michael Whatley and co-chair Laura Trump said. The Republican Party is united behind the effort to elect President Donald J. Trump, and Americans are lining up to join our movement and retire crooked Joe Biden once and for all. While Saturday's event raised far more money than Biden's recent New York City fundraiser, the Democrat Party continues to have a cash advantage over the Republican Party. The Biden campaign held a fundraiser that included 3 presidents Obama, Clinton, and Joe Biden himself, along with many liberal Democrat celebrities who performed, and they could only raise $26 million. So that should tell you a whole lot right there of where we're headed. This next story should upset every American. Doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, you're an independent, if you're a conservative, if you're a far left liberal. Doesn't matter. If you're an American, this should upset you. Protesters in Dearborn, Michigan shouted "Death to America" and "Death to Israel" during International I Quids Day rally held in the town. Aman Kohami, who declared the International Aquads Day, this is why he would say to pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America. Turkik Bazi, a Michigan-based activist associated with the institution, said in a video from the rally that was shared by the Middle East Media Research Institute. Bazi's comments were followed by the crowd chanting "Death to America" in the background. Bazi's reasoning that the rally held on the day are so-called anti-American instead of the focus on Israel, because it's the United States government that provides the funds for all of these problems, pointing to Israel's continued siege of Gaza as an example. The activist went on to quote Malcolm X, who said the U.S. is one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on earth, while arguing to eliminate the entire American system. It's not just Genocide Joe that has to go, he said, referring to President Biden. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such actions and such delivery to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth. As he then turned his attention to Israel, telling the audience that when fools ask them if Israel has the right to exist, the chant "Death to Israel" is the most logical chant shouted across the world today. Remarks were followed by chants of "Death to Israel" from protesters in the crowd. International Aquadas Day, an annual pro-Palestinian event that is held on the last Friday of Ramadan, enjoys significant support in Dearborn, Michigan, which is the largest population of Muslim residents in the United States of America. Celebrations of the day have been controversial throughout the world, even drawing a ban from German authorities in Berlin on multiple occasions. Rallies to mark the day have been taking place in Dearborn for the last 20 years, according to Miramar, the executive director, Stephen Statsley, who told Fox News Digital that the town has become a hotbed of hate for many years, and it's getting worse. You can see rallies and sermons in support of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, he said, noting that the threats emanating from the city have become even more pronounced since the October Hamas attack, terrorist attack on Israel. Republican State Representative Phil Green told Fox News Digital that he agrees with assessment of a growing problem in Dearborn and around the country, arguing that it saddens him to see the world problems coming to our doorsteps. This type of extremism, this type of rhetoric, this type of division, threats of violence was a Middle East thing for years. It seems like a lot of that was limited to the Middle East. And now it's come to our doorsteps in America, Green said. Green said the majority of Dearborn citizens are peaceful and don't promote violence, but he acknowledged the movement bubbling up from the town are worth mentioning and monitoring closely. Dearborn also became the center of a protest movement against Biden last month when activists from the town encouraging Democrats to vote uncommitted instead of supporting the president's reelection bid. Faizy's speech was followed by remarks from Michigan's Amin Osama, who called Israel an evil settler colonist project and a cancer, while applauding those who are willing to publicly criticize the country. Israel is ISIS. They are Nazis. They are fascists. They are racist, he said. The people of the world know this. Protesters then heard chanting "Free Palestine" and "From the river to the sea." Controversial phase classified as hate by the American Jewish community. According to Stanley, the type of rhetoric has become a common theme in Dearborn. I'm not saying that everyone in Dearborn is a terrorist, but there is a large amount of people that support jihad groups there. My personal belief, anyone, American citizen, American college student or not, who openly supports an Islamic terrorist group should be arrested and charged with such. And furthermore, should be given a one-way ticket to somewhere in the Middle East. Dear Department of Justice and FBI, you need to focus on this group in Dearborn, Michigan. Laser focus, because it is a hotbed for Islamic terrorists rising up to start killing Americans. If they're openly chanting "Death to America" on the streets in America, that's not peaceful protesting. That's inciting death to American citizens. The FBI has arrested an 18-year-old in Idaho after uncovering his truly horrific and violent plot to attack churches this past weekend on behalf of the terrorist group ISIS. Alexandria Mercuro is now facing a federal charge of attempting to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization after the FBI says he devised a plan to incapacitate his father, restrain him using handcuffs, and steal his firearms to use for maximum casualties, an attack he planned to carry out in northern Idaho on Sunday, April 7th. The defendant pledged loyalty to ISIS and sought to attack people attending churches in Idaho. A truly horrific plan which was detected and thawed by the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, FBI Director Chris Wray said in a release statement. The Justice Department will continue to relentlessly pursue, disrupt, and hold accountable those who would commit acts of terrorism against the people and interests of the United States, added Attorney General Merrick Garland. Of course, he left off Donald Trump as well. In a criminal complaint, the FBI says the investigation began when the man reached out to a confidential human source online and indicated his support for ISIS terrorist organizations. More generally, he spread ISIS propaganda online and solicited ISIS involvement and an approval of his propaganda efforts, discussed traveling from the United States to join ISIS. His attacks plan involved using flame-covered weapons, explosives, knives, a machete, a pipe bomb, and ultimately firearms, the investigation added. His plan grew more precise as he eventually identified the specific church and date on which he planned to do the attack. The FBI investigators also said he made statements pledging his allegiance to ISIS and stating his intention to die while killing others on behalf of ISIS. But on Saturday afternoon, FBI agents carried out a search warrant at his house and took him into custody while allegedly finding items linked to the plot, including the metal pipe, a Black Smith & Wesson knife blade, and a machete. He now faces up to 20 years in federal prison if convicted on the federal charges. So that's one case of the FBI taking out somebody supporting ISIS terrorists to kill Americans. Once again, Department of Justice, and FBI, you need to laser focus on Dearborn, Michigan. How vast was the great COVID cover-up? Well, investigations have recently discovered government officials from 15 federal agencies knew in 2018 that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was trying to create a coronavirus like COVID-19. These officials knew that the Chinese lab was proposing to create a COVID-19 like virus, and not one of these officials revealed this scheme to the public. In fact, 15 agencies with knowledge of this project have continuously refused to release any information concerning this alarming and dangerous research to members of Congress that are investigating it. Government officials representing at least 15 federal agencies were briefed on a project proposed by Peter Ducote, EcoHealth Alliance, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. This project, the Diffuse Project, proposed to insert a furin cleavage site into a coronavirus to create a novel simic virus that would have been shockingly similar to COVID-19 virus. For years, investigators have been fighting to obtain records from dozens of federal agents related to the origins of COVID-19 and the Diffuse Project. Under duress, the administration finally released documents that showed that the Diffuse Project was pitched to at least 15 agencies in January of 2018. So what does this mean? It means that at least 15 United States of America federal agencies knew from the beginning of the pandemic that EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institution were seeking federal funding in 2018 to create a virus genetically very similar, not identically, to COVID-19. Disruptively, not one of these 15 agencies spoke up to warn that the Wuhan Institution had been pitching this research. Not one of these agencies warned anyone that this Chinese lab had already put together plans to create such a virus. Peter Ducote concealed his proposal. University of North Carolina scientist Ralph Burrick, a named collaborator on the Diffuse Project, failed to reveal that the Wuhan Institution had already proposed to create a virus similar to COVID-19. And now we know the 15 agencies heard the proposal, and when each agency discovered that COVID-19 was strangely similar to the Diffuse proposed virus creation, not one agency head stepped forward to warn the public that the virus might be man-made and therefore already adapted to transmit freely among humans. Not surprisingly to some of us, Dr. Anthony Fauci, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, was not only briefed on the Wuhan desire to create this virus, he was actually listed as a participant in the initial Diffuse pitch. Fauci's Rocky Mountain Lab was named as a partner alongside the Wuhan Institution in its proposal. These documents also reveal that a scientist whose lab has received millions of dollars from EcoHealth was also part of the original plan to create these coronaviruses. This researcher, Ian Lipkin, also later became one of the authors of Proximate Origins, a journal paper commissioned by Fauci and National Institutes of Health head Francis Collins to throw shade on anyone arguing that the virus might have come from the lab. Yet Ian Lipkin never revealed to the public the Diffuse proposal. Did Anthony Fauci warn us? No. All lips remained silent while millions of Americans died of COVID-19. We now know that over the 15 government agencies, as well as the investigators, Peter Ducote, Ralph Burrick, Ian Lipkin, and scientists at the Rocky Mountain Lab all knew of the Wuhan Institute desire to create the coronavirus, a virus pre-adapted to human transmission, and no one spoke up. We only know this Diffuse proposal because a whistleblower, one brave former Marine Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Murray, came forward with the truth. Likely hundreds of people in the government knew of this proposal to create the COVID-19-like virus, and virtually every one of these people chose to keep quiet, to obscure, and ultimately to conceal information that might have saved lives by letting the world know this was no sleepy animal virus with poor transmission. Shame on all those who covered up the Diffuse Project. Of course, they all should be punished, but likely won't. At the very least, though, the perpetrators should be made to admit the truth to Congress and should finally put in their place significant oversight to make sure dangerous gain-of-function experiments are sufficiently vetted and, if necessary, prevented. And sadly, that's not going to be the case. And especially if Republicans don't win back 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and take back control of the Senate and keep the House come November. No, the Democrats will continue to take up for these people and stop any investigation that can have anything to do with anything with this COVID deal. And it's pretty sad because, hey, this came about under Donald Trump. Let's think about that. He was the president when this happened to us here in America. So why are they so hell-bent on covering for Fauci and these other 15 agencies? It doesn't add up. And they shouldn't. Republicans and Democrats should be able to come together and get to the bottom of stuff like this. But as we've seen all too often throughout history, that doesn't happen in Washington, D.C. these days. Look, I'm not just going to blame Democrats for this, because let's think about it. Let's be serious. Think back to when Republicans had all three branches of government: the White House, the House, and the Senate. What got done? Did the border get secure? No, it didn't. Were Second Amendment and First Amendment rights put in stone above and beyond what the Constitution says to make it more difficult for future Democrats to tear apart? No, it didn't. Did they support and give their all out for law enforcement in this nation? Yeah, Trump sure as hell showed more support for law enforcement than what they're receiving today. But, you know, things happen that just baffle my mind. Why, during the last administration, was it said that the drug cartel and the cartel, period, in Mexico are going to be labeled a terrorist organization, which they should, so that American forces can go in there and wipe them out once and for all? And then Donald Trump goes over to Mexico and meets with the Mexican president and comes back and doesn't do it. So, as much as I want to see Republicans take back control of all three branches of government, if they do, and I do pray that that's what happens, it'll be up to me and you, the American people, to hold them accountable, to call them, write them, send them messages on their social media platforms, on their websites, at their offices, letting them know that they're not going to get away with sitting on their dead asses again, that it's time to make change. You know, during the run-up to the election, the very first one, 2016, what was chanted at every single rally and supported by the candidate? Lock her up. Because the whole world saw. Because the FBI laid it out for us. And we watched Hillary Clinton testify in Congress and lie. Everything from Benghazi to her private email server and deleting 30,000 plus emails after being told that she has to hold them for Congress. And then Republicans take over and Hillary Clinton gets a pass. Everybody got a pass in those 4 years. Everybody. What did it get the Republicans? Well, it got 4 years of Donald Trump being attacked every single day by Democrats and the left, making him spend millions of dollars in attorney fees. It got him impeached by the House for something that didn't make any sense, that was proven that it wasn't true. The whole Russia collusion bullshit and the Ukrainian call. For 4 years, Donald Trump couldn't get much of anything accomplished because he was constantly having to defend himself in court. Then he gets out of office, and what happens? Well, they see that there's a good possibility he's going to run again. So they started stacking up lawyers and DAs and judges to keep him wrapped up and have to spend millions and millions and millions of more dollars. We're watching something happen right now to a former president that's never happened to anyone in the history of our country. It's absolutely it's pathetic is what it is. Because when the Republicans had the chance to do the same thing to the Democrats, they didn't. They didn't do it. They let them get away with it. Who got held accountable at the FBI? Who got held accountable at the Department of Justice? Who got held accountable? Members of Congress like Shifty Schiff, who lied. Who got held accountable for the Russia collusion? No one. Republicans didn't hold anybody accountable. So much so that then the Democrats took back control of the Senate and won 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Whether they stole it or whether they won it legitimate, that's fucking done and over with. That's history, which we'll find out in the future. History will prove to us once and for all what really went down. And you know how I feel about that. I'm pretty sure most of you feel the same way. There was a huge cover-up in a lot of different things, in a lot of different ways. Hell, we went to bed on election night because, they quit counting. And Trump was ahead. What? I've never in my life seen a presidential race where they quit counting at midnight because, we're tired and need to go to sleep. It's never happened. Then we wake up the next day and, all these votes came in that belonged to just one candidate, putting him over the top. Are you fucking kidding me? Joe Biden he couldn't fill a high school gymnasium during the entire time he was campaigning. A fucking high school. And Trump's out there in major auditoriums that hold 15,000, 20,000 people And it's sold out. There's people outside, as many outside as there are inside. You tell me. So, if we've learned nothing, we should have learned at least this much. That it is time for Republicans, if they win back all three branches of government, to stick it to those no good, low life, horrible, disgusting fucking Democrats that I once used to be a member of. I used to be a proud Democrat until I woke up and realized what a horrible bunch of scumbag, racist, no good, hypocritical bastards that party became. That's not to say that all Democrats fall under that category, but those in Washington, D.C. that are running this country, they're the biggest criminals on the face of the earth. And when Republicans take back the shit, they better go after their ass, or nobody's ever going to vote for them again. Everybody would just say, fuck it, and back away. Because that's how pissed off the GOP is right now. This is our last chance in November to get this right. And give them a taste of their own damn medicine. I'm going to be reaching out this week to several members of Congress about where this needs to head if we win back in November. Joe Biden and former President Barack Obama need to be charged for treason for what they did. Treason. Obama traded a known deserter of his country, Sergeant Burdog, for 5 captured on the battlefield ISIS terrorists, and then gave them billions of dollars as well. That is aiding and abetting the enemy. That is treason. What happened in Benghazi and the lies that were told and covered up, that is treason. And Joe Biden, what he did in Afghanistan and that pullout, when he left behind American citizens and got more American service members killed and left behind billions of dollars of military equipment in the hands of terrorists, is treason, aiding and abetting the enemy. I, for one, as a former combat veteran of the United States, want to see those two brought up and charged with treason, because that's what it is. You had many places to be tonight, chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends and family. In the description of this show and all my videos and all my shows, you can see the places you can follow me on social media, besides wherever you're watching me tonight. We're live on YouTube, we're live on Rumble, we're live on LinkedIn, we're live on X. Spread the word, because that's how we get this knowledge out there to the people that matter, the people that plan to vote in November, and the people that would like to do something about it to fix this country and take it back from the evil bastards that are trying to destroy it. There's a lot coming up on Thursday night's show that I hope you will tune in and join me. There are some things that are cooking and brewing right now across this nation that's just sickening beyond belief that I'll be sharing with you on Thursday. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families in our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. Whatever you're doing tonight, whatever you're doing between now and Thursday, please be safe. Some very, very bad, severe weather moving across the country, starting right now, actually. And it's going to be building and building throughout the day tomorrow. Tornado outbreaks, a bunch of horrible stuff weather-wise. So be safe wherever you're at. If you're in Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, it's all going to be hit with some severe weather. It's so drastic that they're calling for not only school closures statewide, but also state and federal buildings and organizations. So be safe out there. And I'll see you back here Thursday night for another live show. Thank you. God bless you. And I'll see you soon.